Welcome back to episode 22 of the Tech Lounge. I hope y'all doing mighty fine out there, and I'm joined by Kev from Tech Showdown. How you doing, man?
Doing great, Brian. Just been getting through a lot of my Ryzen 5 testing, my delayed Ryzen 5 testing because it took so long for us here in New Zealand to get them, and been doing some RX 570 testing also. What about you, bro?
Yeah, just been getting through heaps of videos. The backlog is almost finished, so I'm going to Sydney on Wednesday to meet up for the AMD event, and also Steve from Hardware Unbox will be there, so that'll be pretty cool. So if anyone's in Sydney and they're into tech, just send us a message on Twitter and probably meet up afterwards for some beers and whatnot if you guys are in Sydney and you're tech enthusiasts. So looking forward to that. And then after that, we're going to do the used PC build for the month. I can't wait for that. And then there's going to be a lot of other different videos coming, so really cool what's coming up. And also just got part 2 done of the R7700K versus R7 Also going to be doing the multiplayer benchmarks. I'm probably going to spend a bit more time after that because I want to go more in depth, even more in depth. Like I was going pretty in depth and I was doing some real world testing, but I want to go more in depth than that because I was playing a bit of Hon last night, and this is a game that I played religiously, like, you know, back when it was first released, and of course back in 2011, 2012, I went pretty high on the MMR rating, and I was playing with some really top guys on those servers. And dude, the R7 1700, the 1800X, the frame rates are just pretty low. Like I remember my frame rates always being over 100 FPS in that game, and that was on the 4-core. Of course, it's a single-threaded game, whatnot, but this was on like the 6-core Ivy Bridge CPU, and I remember having just really high frame rates all the time on that game, and now I'm like getting like 80 FPS and stuff like that, and it's kind of like so I might be going back and doing some some testing with like maybe do some different testing, like turn off branch prediction and stuff like that, and see how it affects games, because I don't think the branch prediction which is being used, especially in productivity tasks, I don't think it's really helping the gaming a whole lot, especially multiplayer games, which is where I know a lot of people are playing multiplayer games. I'd say the majority of people actually play games where you play games online. You look at CSGO, Dota 2, and all these other games, and yeah, you see, is Ryzen, is that its Achilles heel? Could that be its weak point, is competitive online gaming? So that's something I'm going to look into. Part 3 will probably be the most eye-opening of the whole comparison. But yeah, RX 570, got one in and just haven't even looked at it yet. I've actually got it right. I've actually got it like right here. So here it is there. It's the Gigabyte Aorus. They're doing a pretty good...
Same one as I got.
Yeah, they're doing a pretty good job, man. They're doing a pretty good job. Little solid card. And of course, we'll be talking about the RX 570 and 580 today a little bit as we go along. But do you have any other news? I've been talking too much.
No, it's just I'll be bringing out a video talking about the overclocking difference of the RX 570 compared to the 470. So both of them, and quite interesting. The most interesting thing, without giving too much away about the video already, is the stock power is so much higher on the RX 570. I mean, the TDP went up by 30 watts. Even more bizarre is the fact that Gigabyte, the recommended PSU, actually went down by 50 watts. So I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, if you actually look a bit deeper, you can see that it's actually, in terms of millivolts in its highest state, the 470 would usually sit at about 1,000, whereas the 570 is sitting at 1150. So definitely with these extra clock speeds, they have upped the power, which is something you need to keep in mind. But all of these ones are non-reference, so you won't have the power issues we had with the reference one, because if you guys remember back, that was the it had a 6-pin power connector, which gives you 75, and then it'll draw 75 through the slot, and it was actually drawing more than it should have. But all these non-reference ones are all 8 pins now, so it's not really a problem with that 150 watt TDP. A lot of people forgot about that issue back when the 480 first launched and we were all testing them out.
Well, we might as well get into this topic straight away then, since we're already talking about it. And this is the flashing of RX480s to 580s, and some people have been recommending it. Some people are like, be careful. My advice would be straight. I haven't tried it yet, but my advice would be to be very careful, especially if you haven't flashed a graphics card before. Of course, if you've got another graphics card on hand, you have two PCIe 16 speed slots or whatever, and you've got an onboard graphics on your CPU. You don't really have to fear too much. Like if you just keep your original V BIOS, so if you flash it and it breaks, just flash it back and you'll be okay. But of course, it raises the question of course, I think the RX5 series is going to be a better bin, especially on the 580 line. I'm seeing clock speeds going into 1.4 gigahertz. Now, my RX 480 never went even close. I think it got to like 1360 megahertz. So if I tried to flash it, man, I know the results already. The thing would just not boot up. It would just not work. So again, if you've got a RX 480 that can clock pretty high, then the BIOS update may be beneficial because it'll also make the timings more tighter on the memory and stuff like that. So there will be things that you can benefit from an upgrade. But again, if you're like a guy who, like me, who has a pretty bad RX 480 in terms of overclocking, then I probably wouldn't recommend it, as you'll just have a bit of panic. Of course, you can, when you're editing the BIOS, you can downclock the clocks, and you can make it so that it's good. But on that note, again, just be careful. I might, maybe if you guys want to see a guide, I can do that. Maybe because I've got a bad RX 480, it'd probably be a good guide in that a lot of people would be like, okay, if he's got one of the worst RX 480s out there, then we can follow his guide and sort of have success. So, but on that note,
no, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say that I personally wouldn't. I mean, you can if you want, but I've tested the 570 and the 470, the exact same models from Gigabyte, and there's literally like 2 frames in it on average, 2 or 3. So it's not really. The only thing good I would say about the 570 from what I've seen so far is the fact that with that extra power, it gives you extra overclocking headroom. But
what
aside
about,
from that,
but wait, sorry, you say a few frames. What are we talking percentage-wise?
like, I haven't done it in terms of percentage. I just knew through all my benchmarks I ran the average frame difference for all the games and synthetics and otherwise are it worked out to be about 2 or 3 because the clock speeds are on the 2 gigabyte ones. It's only a I believe 14 megahertz from memory different on the core and 400 megahertz on the memory. So the memory actually is a decent jump up from 6,600 to 7,000 megahertz. But
it's nothing much.
That's not much. So that would only give you 2 or 3 FPS on average at 1080p. It's just one of those things that I don't know. I mean, you can definitely do it, but I think even in the article they say there's probably not going to be worth it for the vast majority of people. You're just probably better off overclocking your 480 or 470 as high as you possibly can. Look through guides. You do need to tune manually the voltages on them. Just using that power slider, you'll be very limited. You actually need to go in, raise it up to like 1100 millivolts across all states is a good way. That's what I did. I mean, your power consumption will be kind of crazy, but if you're wanting to get maximum performance, you won't care about that. And then you can really harness a lot of power out of it, start getting it up to sort of 1350 megahertz type area, maybe higher if you get a really good one. So that's what I would recommend doing instead. That's where you'll get the most out of them.
Well, one thing I've noticed about the RX 470s, especially compared to the 480s, is that they always clock lower. This is in what I've found as well. I've had a heap of 470s come through, and they just don't go anywhere near the clocks of the 480. And this is on pretty much a bad 480. So I'm wondering this time around as well. I forgot where I pulled up the article. I think it's this one here. So we've got the RX 570s, 5 Series Ice QX2 from HIS or his or her. And I wish they'd just call it her. That'd be pretty cool. It's like, 570 her, 580 his, big brother, little sister. But we've got here the boost clocks here are lower on the 570, like significantly lower, right? And then of course they got their 580s soaring up to 1430 megahertz. So this again, it looks like the 580s, even compared to the 570s, are again that possibly that better bin of model. And I had a lot of people telling me, like, look, dude, if you can get a 480, it's only an extra $20, even if it's the 4GB model over the 470. And I kind of, after seeing a lot of these different results and the way these card manufacturers are bringing out these 570s and 580s, I'd probably have to agree. Maybe if you guys are looking, and you're seriously looking, and you're looking at pulling the trigger on that $160 RX470, maybe have a look at the time what the cheapest RX480 is going for. Or in this case, if you've got a 570 versus a 580 and they got the same amount of VRAM, maybe think about getting the 580, that entry level one, because it looks like it's going to overclock better. It looks like it's going to actually be a better bin. So
yeah, exactly. One thing they say in this article, which I do agree with, which is perplexing, is why do they raise the core speeds up so high, like 1430 in this case, but then they leave the memory at stock? You'd think that they would, if I remember back to the 290s and the 390s for that matter, and 390Xs and 290Xs, they would, the non-reference models, a lot of them would have upped memory as well. So it was sort of like they would up the core by 50 megahertz, whatever, over reference, and then they'd up the memory like 200, 400, 600 megahertz as well. It just seems strange, that they'll bring their core boost speed up so much, but then leave the memory alone. When we know there's headroom to go higher, it's not like these are fully strapped, so they can't go. We know they can go higher. So
I think I might know the answer. Let me put on my thinking glasses here. Hold on. Oh, wow, these are legit glasses. Okay. The answer is they're using cheap memory. And no one really looks at memory speeds, so there you go. You got to save some money somehow, dude. So put in some cheap memory. Bang, don't put in the expensive stuff. Put in the cheap stuff, and then just put it at the standard 8 gigabits per second. Booyah.
Yeah.
Okay, so next topic we wanted to talk about here is the hardware poll. So you pulled this up. You got a hardware poll. Now, I actually, really, this is coincidence too. I did a poll on Twitter, so I beat you guys. They did this 10 hours ago. I did mine maybe 36 hours ago. So I did the, I just said, which would you buy given the chance? The i7 7700K or the R7 1700? Because I'm doing the comparison right now. I just want to know what heaps of people think. So if you guys want to, well, the vote's finished now, but if you guys want to vote on these polls, you can head over to Twitter, www.twitter.com/TechCityPC. And I did this survey, and I just said, which would you buy given the chance? And I was surprised. Still a lot of people would still buy the 7700K. 41% versus 59% on the R7 1700. So, I thought the R7 1700 would have gained a lot more momentum going into this survey. And now people can say it's only 607 votes, but at the same time, a lot of my audience, they're very open-minded. I know a lot of these guys are very open-minded. So they, like, price performance wise as well. So very orientated towards price performance. And they would probably, 41% of them would still go with an i7 7700K despite it having half the cores and half the thread count. Of course, it overclocks high, it's got the better IPC and whatnot, but that just, what do you take out of those results?
I just think it's because you're sort of looking at it from the same way, I suppose. I might look at it, or someone like Steve might look at it. Or I saw Chris from Tech Tablets, who's a really nice guy. That's a great channel. Go check that out. He replied as well, saying he went for the 1700. But that's because we're all creators who game. So we need the cores for the productivity and stuff like that. So, of course, we will 100% trend towards the 1700. But the people out there that don't do any of that stuff at all and just care about gaming, they will go for that 7700K. Higher clock speeds, better IPC. That's what the games want, or benefit from. So they will go for that, and only in very specific scenarios. And I love these Ryzen CPUs, and I'm sort of always in the back of my mind thinking about going over, getting an X370 and going towards the Ryzen 1700. But there's very few games that I've seen where the 1700 or any of the Ryzen 7s will beat the 7700K in just straight up average frames. The Kaby Lake CPUs are still very, very powerful and very good in gaming. However, when we go to productivity, then that's a different story. Those Ryzen 7s just smoke.
No, but that's the thing.
Those
That's
Kaby Lake
but
ones.
that's what I'm going to put out. They don't, like, for what I do, editing, you know, I use the Premiere Pro suite for a lot of my productivity. So that's where, I guess, if my results come out, they're all in a similar league. My 6-core, the Broadwell E, 6-core, the 8-core R7 1700, even the R5 1600, and then the 7700K, they're all in the same league. Like, as opposed to when I first went to the 6-core 12-thread, I was using a 4-core for doing all my video editing and stuff like that. You know, when I went from that 4-core to the 6-cores 12 threads, man, was it a world of difference. I remember doing that back in, what, 2014 or something. So that was a world of difference. That was huge. That was a big upgrade. I noticed it. Not only everything was way better at productivity, but also I had more room when I was doing productivity. I had the extra cores and threads, and I could go do other things without my computer choking. But nowadays, like, the 7700K, of course, if you're doing a final render, then the other options, all the other options I tested will be better, because the 7700K just gets maxed out when it's doing its final render time. So you can't do anything else unless you want, you know, a really sluggish performance. But the R7 1700, you can still browse the web and do other things and create a thumbnail while your video is rendering, which is really good. And same, but I could still do that on the 6-core, the 6800K. So there's not a huge world of difference. Of course, the R7 1700 is much better value than a 6800K, but still, like, I'm finding, I guess, a lot of people, when we talk about smoke, like you said before, when it smokes it in productivity, again, what productivity are you doing? That's kind of like my
I'm meaning like render times, number crunching stuff, because in my testing, the 7700 non-K takes about 5 minutes, 10 seconds to render a 13-minute 1080p video in 1080p.
That's quick.
Where the 1700 will do it in 3.5 minutes or less. So, you know, there's a pretty, in straight up, you are correct, in straight up render times, those Ryzen 7s. But it makes sense. You've got a quad core 8-thread against a 8-core 16-thread. Of course, it should be, but of course, it's not exactly half. But I think that might have been part of why it is. Do I think that Kaby Lake CPU is good value for money? No, that wasn't the point I was trying to make.
No.
It's just that I can understand where those people that are just purely doing gaming, just that's all they're doing, might still trend towards that. Maybe if they just don't care about the value for money thing, they just got money to burn, they just want a really good gaming CPU, there could still be a place there. But the article, the WCCF Tech hardware survey that they've been doing, you can go through, and there's obviously, I think there's quite a few. This is be just enthusiasts, I imagine, would be filling this out. Most of these have about 2,000 votes. The most interesting ones for me, though, are how much people are willing to spend. And for the GPU and the CPU, it seems like the majority, only by a tiny, like 1%, on the GPU will spend $300 to $400. Then the next lot are looking to spend $600 plus. So that's quite interesting also, that a lot of people out there will want to spend quite a bit on a GPU. And it's a sort of similar fare when you go down to the how much people would spend for a CPU. Bit more in favor, but and nowhere near as high. A third of people would spend between $300 and $400, whereas only a quarter will spend between $200 and $300. Basically, all that tells me is that people are more willing to spend higher amounts, like $400 plus, or we should say $300 to say $700 on a GPU, whereas a lot less people are willing to spend over $400 on a CPU. And that's pretty good thinking for the most part. You do obviously want to be spending more on the GPU. A lot of people say use the 50% rule. So whatever your CPU costs, you add another 50%. I don't know. For my case, we run a 6900K. You'd have to buy like a Titan XP or something. But it's kind of a good idea. You definitely want to use the majority of your budget on. This is for gamers. People doing productivity stuff is obviously different. But for gamers, you want to be using the majority of your budget on the GPU. That should be the most expensive thing you buy in your build. And that's basically what's being told here, is the people surveying will be spending the most, as most of them will only wanting to spend, half of people, $100 to $200 on a motherboard, and $300 to $400 or less on a CPU, but people are willing to spend $400 and up on a GPU, like half of people. So that's a big discrepancy there, and that's what I think was interesting about this survey, in the fact that maybe we will start seeing these GPU prices just keep going up and up, as people does seem like are willing to pay for it.
Well, there's a few things here. I didn't see the R6. I quickly banged in some answers, but R5 1600. Sorry, I didn't see you before the R7 1700. I voted the R7 1700 over the R5 1600 when that was clearly a mistake. No, but how much would you? Yeah, again, how much would you pay for a good CPU? We see the results. They're pretty, like, they're all around there. So, like, they're all around there. There's not one real, I guess $300, $400 is taking the crown there. But again, same with the GPUs. The money sort of, the money shot is scattered all around there. So I guess there's all different people with all different budgets out there. And I think that's where these companies have to see this data. Because I guess the money stuff, there's going to be no bias there. That's pretty much just people, okay, voting, this is what I would want with my money, and this is how much I've got to spend. So I think this is the most interesting part, is how much would you pay for a good graphics card? How much would you pay for a CPU? And so companies would want to look at this, like Intel and AMD, and they would want to offer all different SKUs for that. So there are people who would spend, like me, I'd spend $500, $600 on a really good graphics card if it gave me really good performance. And
I think that's already represented, though, if you think about it, Brian, because think what the Intel, let's say the 7700K in New Zealand sells $550, and that's like the top one if you want to go for a gaming CPU. But then let's think of a gaming GPU, for example, in New Zealand. If you're wanting to get a 1080, you'll be running double that. Or a 1080 Ti, you'll be running double that plus a few $100 more. So you're paying like $550 for the Intel's top gaming CPU, but you'll be paying about $1,000 to $1,100 for a very high-end NVIDIA GPU. Now, obviously, Vega may change that, but that sort of shows that the markets are reflecting that. But the other thing I found interesting, which it might be a little bit of bias here, but it was what went down the bottom, which was or in the middle, I should say, which add-in board vendor do you trust the most? And it was Asus by 30%, that kind of surprised me. Then MSI with 21%, then Sapphire with 16%, and then Gigabyte 13%.
But this is for graphics cards. I mean, for motherboards, I'm actually with ASRock there. Poor Galax didn't even make it on the list. I mean, Asus still have a big following. Same with MSI. They're both a lot of their cards are selling, a lot of their motherboards are selling really well. This is something that we're seeing. A lot of those. It's funny because, I just thought Gigabyte would have been Gigabyte graphics cards have been very good to me actually over the past.
I would have thought Gigabyte would have been quite high up there because out of that, if I had to pick the ones I trust the most out of that list, I would say for AMD cards, Sapphire. I've had quite a few Sapphire cards. They build a very good graphics card. I really do like Sapphire. I think they do a very good job. But with just cards in general, both sides of the fence, the Gigabyte cards have been really, really solid. For some reason, I get this on my videos all the time. People say, oh, but Gigabyte cards have coil whine issues. I don't know where that started, but I've tested like probably 100 graphics cards now since I've done the channel, all different models and everything. So it's probably more than most people own in their lifetime. And it's been all the different brands. And I haven't noticed. I haven't gone to put Gigabyte cards in, and then, you know, every time it's been horrendous coil whine, because I would start to take note of that. I seem to see that coil whine, it's just card dependent. I can have 3 models of Gigabyte card, and one will have bad coil whine, and the other 2 might not. And then I'll chuck in a Zeus card, and that'll have even worse coil whine. I think it's very specific on the card. But as I've told you guys plenty of times, so many people are like, oh, the card coil whine's like crazy when playing CSGO, because like your FPS is like 300 something, and it's just screaming. So just put an FPS cap on there. I know you're high refresh rate, guys.
No, you don't do that on CSGO. No, you can't put a cap on CSGO. That's one game where you don't put an FPS cap on there. You actually
But what's the benefit of running 300 FPS? Of say, I'm just assuming you're running, say, a 60 hertz 1080p monitor, because that's what the majority of people run.
It's about drawing. It's about drawing the fastest frame as soon as possible. Like CS:GO is a really competitive game, so it comes down to sometimes a few milliseconds. So, you know, if you're playing for freaking big money, which CS:GO does have big money, it's the same with Dota 2 or any other competitive game. You want no VSync on. You don't want free
latency.
Sync. Yeah, you're drawing the frames as fast as possible. Even regardless of what's coming out of your monitor. You ask any pro gamer, would they have screen tearing and low input lag, or no screen tearing and input lag? They'll say the first option, no input lag. It's all about getting the frames as fast as, you know, drawing the data up to your screen as fast as possible. If you're a pro gamer, every millisecond counts. And this is the thing. Like, people say, like, there'll be people out there that will be like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like, dude, have you played a game competitively on the pro level? Because if you have, then that's such a scrub statement. Like, you have to get the fastest. You have to get basically the best setup you can if you are getting to that level. Obviously, if you're like a, you know, mediocre player and you're going out and spending all this money on gear, it's not going to make you a better player. You have to have the skill there to begin with.
Yeah.
But if I get what you're saying. Yeah, if you have the skills and you are on top of your game, then, you know, drawing the frames and having high FPS and stuff like that, it's a tool that helps you better, like, helps you win.
Yeah. I get that. So maybe it was a bad analogy on my part, but you would agree with me in the sense if you were playing a non-competitive game, that totally. You wouldn't want that high FPS, because that will give you that horrendous coil whine, which is the main problem a lot of people will have, is just from that. But no, I haven't noticed it with Gigabyte cards any worse than any of the other ones. It just seems like,
well, they pretty much all use the same chokes as well.
Yeah. It's just, the high-end cards generally this isn't always the case, but the ones with upgraded components on their flagship models, in theory, there should be less likelihood of you having that problem, but people still get it. I tested the flagship Extreme Edition Gigabyte 1080 Ti, and I still heard a little bit, and I heard some on the MSI 1080 Ti as well, and they had upgraded components. So yeah, so I think it's that's quite interesting. The reference card thing is pretty interesting as well, that people only buy. That's what we should expect. You know, people buying the non-reference models. Most people don't buy a reference model unless it's a very good version of it. The RAM thing was interesting too. 16 gigs or under is the most popular. That kind of falls into it. They have better cooling solutions. That falls into they have better build quality. That's what I'd call that.
You know, what can be taken out of this survey is majority of people love the custom graphics cards. They wait for them. VR's dead. And majority of people don't own a VR headset. So
I think it's too expensive, the barrier to entry right now for that. But the CPU configuration, that was the last thing I wanted to talk about with this. That's interesting because it's asking what people have right now. A third of them have 4-core 4 threads, and 31% have 4-core 8 threads. So already, you know, 64% of the market is running those quad cores with or without hyper-threading. and only see 14% there with the 8-core 16 threads, which I would assume a lot of them would be people on Intel's Extreme platform with things like 6800Ks or on Haswell E. But there would be Ryzen chips in there for sure, Ryzen 7s. Yeah. But yeah, and of course, as I said before, just under that 1080p 60 FPS, 60 hertz, I should say. Or no, that's saying minimum frame rate. Yeah, so they would want 1080p 60. That makes sense. The vast majority of people are still gaming at 1080p 60 hertz.
I'm not dare going into this comment. I was going to scroll down more, but I'm not going into the WCCF Tech comment section. We're not doing that to you guys.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Okay, so the next article you pulled up here from WCCF Tech again is it's the Kaby Skylake-X and Skylake-X chips. So they're rumored to be pushed forward to Computex, which is kind of what we've been hearing about. But there's also some bizarre things going on. So now we're looking at what we've got a 12 core coming out in the mix as well. And something that I wanted to talk about straight away is like, okay, we're seeing now that I guess the majority of end users don't, like, especially from the testing I've recently done, is that 16 threads will be, you won't really want any more than 16 threads if you are, whatever, simple office, home office, Soho, or whatever it is, and you got your workstation and your game on it. I think 16 threads is currently the best point to be at if you can afford it for someone who's just working at home or whatever, working in a studio and they got their workstation. I think that's the best option. But of course, we're seeing 12 cores, 24 threads. And of course, Intel's going to charge for that. You know, what can we expect to see? Yeah. Tell me, guys, in the comments, what do you think of the single cost? I'm guessing $2,000 straight up.
Yeah, Australian or
no, like US. I think $2,000 US is a 12. Yeah, 12 cores, dude. They're upping the core count again. You saw the price increase from 8 to 10 was huge. So 10 to 12, it goes without saying. I mean, it might even be exponential. You might even pay $3,000. Who knows?
No, but I think with Ryzen, I don't think they'll go for increased pricing this time around. I think it'll be decreased. I think it'll come in at $2,500 New Zealand.
Depends on how well that 10 core sold, though. That depends on how well that 10 core sold. Remember, Intel knows that data. We don't know that data. How well did that 10 core sell? If it sold pretty well, then they're going to, again, they'll pull it off. But again, that pricing of that 12 core, though, will give you the answers you need to know. If it is a high price, then that means that the 10 core sold pretty well. If it is an more aggressive price, then that 10 core didn't sell it well at all. So proof is always in the pudding, guys. It's always in the numbers. They let you know a lot more than you think they do when you analyze them. But here we got, this is a weird article here a little bit, because it's saying the Kaby Skylake-X will have a total of 40 lanes, and then we scroll down and it's got 16 lanes there, and then of course in this bottom graph here it's saying it's got 46 lanes. So I guess one thing is Skylake-X and Kaby Skylake-X, I'm kind of confused about what exactly is going to happen here. You know, cause
it's a weird thing, eh? It's sort of a bizarre. We're seeing so much conflicting things in this one article, but the market share will be, I mean, the chipset upgrade to X299, that might be worth it. We'll just have to see. Otherwise, Skylake-X looks like what we would expect aside from the 12 core. You'll get a 10 core, an 8 core, and 6 core. The Kaby Skylake-X quad cores, that's an interesting step. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure where that guy fits in, but if Intel's going to be releasing it, then they must have done some, research into it and see they think there's a gap there for the Kaby Skylake-X chips to get on. Maybe, I'm just going to chuck this out there, maybe the chipset upgrades of X299 will be so good over Z270 that some people might go to it just for that, and they just throwing the quad core in there just so people can put cheapest, I should say, CPU on that platform. But I don't know. It's just going to be interesting. The most interesting thing for me, though, with this, once it comes, I mean, this has been brought forward a lot. We were hearing like August before, so obviously Intel's feeling pressured to bring this forward. But the pricing, that's as I've said in my videos when I did the Ryzen 7 showdowns against Broadwell E, I run Broadwell E, and I'll admit it's dead right now. I wouldn't recommend to anybody to buy a Broadwell E chip over Ryzen 7 right now, because just from a pure value for money standpoint, the Ryzen 7s are so much better. So that's why I'm hoping that the price will be quite a lot lower with Skylake-X over Broadwell E. I don't know if that's possible for Intel. We don't know what their margins are. I would imagine they had pretty hefty margins on there, if I'm going to be cheeky and put that out there, because the margins were pretty big between those different CPUs.
You already know they are. I mean, you look at a G4560.
Well, we know they are, yeah.
You look at a G4560 Pentium. It's the same core hardware that's in a 7700K. You look at the markup. That's huge. That's a huge markup. If they're still making profit off a G4560, what does that tell you about the 7700K?
Yeah, exactly. So they have the room there to move down, and they're just gonna have to. There should be, I would hope that the 7900K, which I guess it will be called, maybe that'll be the 10 core this time, but whatever, the 8-core Skylake-X CPU should be at the same price point as something like an 1800X. It has to be there. In New Zealand, that would be, I think off the top of my mind, it's like the 800 New Zealand dollar price point. That's where it has to be, which means that pricing would be the same as what the entry-level 6-core was on Broadwell, the 6800K. So that's... they're really going to need to bring down that pricing there. I'm sure those motherboards, the X299, are going to be massively expensive, so that'll probably offset it to some degree. But I think they're, and also moving forward as well, we got these 16-core Ryzen chips apparently, which is a Naples CPU cut in half.
I mean, I will say the X299, it's funny that X370 AMD did a smart move with that numbering of their motherboards, because if Intel does release X299 and AMD have X370 out there and X399 or whatever they're going to call it, I mean, they're already one leg ahead of Intel. So smart naming scheme there. I mean, maybe Intel might want to think about going to a 1000 series numbering scheme. That would probably be just to differentiate it. But I think AMD did pull a smart move with their naming scheme. I think they really did. So anyway, I mean, the 16 cores, again, guys, like the 12 cores or even the 16 core AMDs, like I'm really not, I mean, I will talk about it, but I'm really not going to be too pleased about. Again, after doing a lot of testing, I'm not really interested in anything over 8 cores, 16 threads, whether it's Intel or AMD. I don't think it's like, for the average guy, especially for my audience, I don't think it really pertains to anyone's interests except for, hey, look what I can do with whatever, SQL or something like that. It's really not much of an interest, as we saw even Ashes of the Sing. I don't know what's going on with my voice here. Jar Jar, what did you do to me? So we've got here, like you saw in that DX12 Ashes of Singularity, for example, a game that was meant to be the best for DX12. It was meant to be DX12's poster child, yet we only saw 16 threads max being utilized, and I confirmed this because I went back and disabled hyperthreading on the dual Xeons. And what that did was we've now got 2 CPUs, but they're only 16 threads, 16 cores, 16 threads. And lo and behold, it was all 16 threads were being utilized now. So the extra 16 threads were just dead. And that's going to happen on a lot of games for the next few years. So I guess, the 8-core 16 thread is where it's at in terms of max for the average consumer or the guy doing workstation stuff. Or, I mean, it depends on, of course, without going too overboard, depends on the application that you're using. Obviously, if you're using a specific application that's going to use 32 threads, then you're going to know what you need, and then you'll go out and buy that if you really need the extra speed. But for the average guy just looking to buy something, at the moment, 8 cores, 16 threads is kind of like the max that I'm going to be looking at personally. So, that's that.
I mean, that's that. There will be a place for them. Not so much, I would say, with the average user, but there'll be commercial uses, I'm sure, for them. There'll be a place. These companies have done their research. I don't think they would release something that they thought no one would end up buying. So there will be a place somewhere for them, but you are right in the sense that, yeah, the majority of users, a core 16 threads is going to be really, really solid. As we've seen with those Ryzen 5 1600s, they're extremely good value for money if you want to build like a cheap workstation / gaming rig. Boy, man, can you build one cheap now? That's for sure. So that's really good.
Yeah, let's go. Next article, NVIDIA's Volta reportedly poised for... just reportedly anticipated. Poised for anticipate. I don't. This title just confused me. Okay, so it's poised for an early Q3 2017 launch. So what we're looking at here is NVIDIA. Apparently, they're having more success on a 12 nanometer fabric.
Yeah.
So they're looking to launch this early. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, for a company like NVIDIA, they're going to launch these products whenever sales start dropping for their previous generation. I mean, I think they've already got Volta in the works. They've already got it ready. And so they're going to release it as soon as possible. And so I'd really be looking forward to a GTX 1180. I want to see what this architecture brings, because NVIDIA have, and I give them credit for that, they have consistently year on year given us gains, whether it be through just, you know, sheer offering heap more CUDA cores or Maxwell or Pascal optimizations. However they've done it, we've still, when we do the benchmarking, we've still got a heap more FPS out of their flagship cards over year on year kind of thing. So I have been pretty impressed with what they've been doing, and so I am looking forward to Volta personally. Of course, Vega, man, Vega just has to get out there. It's, you know, AMD really have to launch that soon. Otherwise, if Volta comes out and Vega's not even out, like, that's what I'm hoping for. I mean, that's the rumor. They're launching it at Computex, but shouldn't we be hearing a lot more about the leaks? Like, you know,
maybe just keeping it really, really silent, or
it's only a month away, and we just usually there's more leaks, there's more sort of juicy details coming out, but there's really not a lot on Vega at this point in time.
It can't be later than that. I think it maybe if it could. I just don't know. This will be interesting, though. They're saying the reason is that they're, as you rightly pointed out, they had not very good sales in the start of this year. Basically, in 2017, Nvidia's sales haven't been what they really want, or what they wanted. So yeah, it's going to be called. Apparently, it's going to be called the GeForce 2000 series, so it'll be the 2080. Okay. And they also say it'll be using GDDR6 won't be ready, so it's going to either be HBM2 or GDDR5X memory on there. If it's HBM2, that's sort of, I think, what it's looking at right now. That would be very, very cool, and on the 12 nanometer process. So yeah, this could be very interesting. If you guys don't know, Q3 is, what is that? July to September, right? The top of my head.
Yeah, be around.
Yeah,
there.
so it'll be in that time period, which
more
is
September.
Sooner than we thought.
More September. I mean, it'd be You're looking at usually when they say these quarter figures and they're rushing a launch. If they are, it's going to be towards the end of the quarter. So September, October actually would be accurate if they are going to look for that launch before Christmas, ramp it up. That'd be very interesting to see. I mean, of course, NVIDIA have just been making gains, as this article points out. Their revenue's just been going off the charts. So, yeah, I mean, whatever they're doing is working. And so, of course, like we saw with the Ryzen CPUs, how much competition they brought to the market. We're all hoping Vega brings competition to the market. And of course, like I've said, Vega's really good. I'll be changing over. Like, I've got no problems in using the best hardware for me at the best price point, and then recommending it to my viewers as well. That's something that, you know, hey, look, you get come here, you get it straight down the line. There's no like company logo. Oh, let's just go get that magic because of the company logo. None of that's going to happen, brothers. And so we're going to see what's installed. But again, like they say in this article, they pulled off a Hail Mary with the Ryzen CPUs. They did do it. They did do a really good job. Yeah. Ryzen CPUs are really good. They are behind. You know, their architecture at the moment, GCN, is behind NVIDIA's in terms of the price performance per watt You know, and that's a big key factor, of course, going in. Power per performance. What's going on, man?
I get what you're saying.
Performance per watt's down, and performance per watt
yeah.
is a huge indicator, man. It's so underrated, but it is a massive indicator of where a company's at in terms of their architecture. Performance per watt. So, in other words, for GPUs, it'd be like IPC kind of thing, if you were to take it from CPUs to GPUs. That gives you an idea where the company's at. Now, with NVIDIA, they are ahead with Pascal over GCN, and Volta is only going to get better with Volta. So I am a little bit worried in AMD if they can't release Vega and it doesn't hit as hard like Ryzen hit with the CPU lineup, then that could be a really bad thing for them. So,
yeah, and they're saying as well that they're going to be increasing the prices again. So yeah, guys, it bought, when Pascal came out and everyone was going, oh look, the prices increased again on the Founders Edition and everything. It's going to be going up again, so you're really going to be paying for all this extra power, I suppose. But Vega will be powerful. We know it's going to have 4096 stream processors, which, if you imagine a Polaris GPU with that many, like, wow. This is going to be grunty. So let's just hope that, as I've said, I don't think it'll beat the 1080 Ti. I just don't see it. But I think it'll slot in between the 1080 or the 1080 Ti or beat the 1080 only by a little bit, but come in at a significantly lower price. But it probably will be using a lot more power. I'd imagine something like 225
but if that
watts,
does come out, and then Volta comes out, then I'm worried about AMD in the GPU department. Hopefully they can do it with Vega. That's what I mean.
It should have been quicker. That's the thing. It's taken too long. They had a good gap. If it had come out in something like February, that would have been a good time. Even January, if it was possible. That's what we were hearing last year, and it's just been pushed back, and to the point now that they're only going to have the market to themselves in terms of before Volta comes out for like 3 months or something, and then Volta will come out, which will probably maybe undercut it. So it should have been a lot quicker, but what can you do?
All right, Kev, cheer up, man. I got some really good news for you. Okay, you just got to cheer up. Okay, next one here, Crytek closing down. They haven't paid the rent. All right, so Crytek in Shanghai, I believe it is, just haven't paid the rent. So, guys, there's no more Crysis coming out. No more Crytek. So, Crysis 4, I think we can forget about that one. That's sad. So
yeah, end of an era, I suppose.
But that's what's weird, because I thought, China and Shanghai at the moment's off the chain. I thought money was just getting flown around everywhere, and these poor guys can't even pay the rent. Jeez.
Yeah. Oh well, I guess the stuff out there, eh?
Now, don't worry, Crytek. YouTube's the same scenario at the moment, man. Like I'm struggling to pay the rent. YouTube's the same. Revenue's down, views are down, interactions down, all this jazz. It's all down.
Yeah, it's been pretty rough lately, especially on us small guys.
And Philip Franco, he said, I watched his video, he said the hemorrhaging's only going to get worse before it gets better. Ugh.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. I was like, oh, okay. He's actually, if he had to say something, he spoke to someone, and he's like giving a hint on what's going on out there. So yeah, it's Crytek's not the only one going through some financial stress, guys. So yeah, and the salaries too. Damn, I feel sorry for the salaries, man. Like, that's sad. People just working jobs and then they get block salaries, man. That's harsh. So we need a GoFundMe page for the Crytek people who didn't get paid their salary. Crytek helped them out with the wages. Next up, we got Call of Duty World War II confirmed. So you were saying, they're going full circle here, eh? They're going full circle back to the original formula. Call of Duty World War II. I'm really looking forward to this. As much as I'm not looking forward to the lazy game engine optimization updates that Call of Duty do, I do like the COD formula. And I know people are going to go at me in the comments like, how dare you like COD? But hey, I can't help what I like, you know what I mean? So I like chicken cheese avocado. Had some last night. Beautiful food, you know. But some people, vegetarians, don't like that. So, you know, Call of Duty, it is a good game. Like, I like just jumping into COD and you're in a game instantly and then you're just fragging. It's a great game to pick up and play for 20 minutes. I've always said that about COD. Really cool thing I like about it. Of course, the game engine optimizations are horrid. You know, a lot of the times, especially the last, Black Ops 2 was the last one that I really enjoyed for PC. I thought they did a pretty good job. Like, it ran really smooth. And then, of course, they brought out, you know, Advanced Warfare and stuff, and it was just like, wow. It was just, yeah, Ghost was terrible. They never actually fixed that. It was just a stutter fest. And yeah, just like I hope they get it right with this one. But I've been saying that for the last it's been saying that for the last few years. I hope they get it right, guys. I hope they get it right because I like my COD. And that's, I mean, the optimist inside me says that they will. But then, of course, we've been let down like pretty much 3 times previously after Black Ops 2. Been let down. So is this going to be another letdown? You know, and then they decided to make a new game studio to sort of pass the buck around. You know, hey, it's not the guys who made Ghost. Hey, man, we're branching off a new team now. And sort of, you know, don't worry. It was their fault, but these guys are making the next one, so don't worry. It's just a cycle. I mean, hopefully, like, you know, I'm gonna say this: if World War II, if you know, Call of Duty World War II is bad, then I'm officially giving up on COD. If it's unoptimized and it's trash, I'm giving up. And I'm not coming back to COD.
I think that's why they're doing it, because the Infinite Warfare didn't do very well, so they got to go back to their roots to get it right, I suppose. So hopefully,
but it's not about the gameplay. It's not about the gameplay really. It's about them having these crappy options in there, like max 90 FPS and stuff like this. It's just absolute crap. It's like, guys, you get paid a crap ton of money to make these games. People buy them. Like, freaking hell, make the game better. But then again, I guess it's like me. Suckers like me keep buying the game because we love the original. Like, especially Black Ops 2. I love that.
I liked Black Ops 1, and World at War was... When World at War came out, that was, like, pretty good at the time. The campaign, anyways, I really enjoyed that. So...
Call of Duty. Call of Duty. Suckers, we're taking your money edition. That's, I mean... Hopefully it's not like that. That was
Infinite Warfare.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just like, yeah, like, it's not about the actual gameplay, running on walls and stuff. I can get used to that and have a bit of fun. It's just when you got caps of like 90 FPS and all this crap going on, and it's like, it stutters on really good hardware too. It's kind of like, what is going on? And it shouldn't even stutter on mediocre hardware. That's the thing. It should be running well on all types of hardware so people can play it and enjoy the game. So... yeah, rant over, but I'm hoping they get it right. I'm gonna officially call it from me anyway. This is it. This is it for COD. If it does well, then I'll give them another chance. If it doesn't do well, so yeah, if it does well this time, I'll give them another 3 strikes. But this is it, 3rd strike. I'm out. My 4th strike in this case. So okay, next article here. We got Biostar launches 2 Mini-ITX AM4 motherboards. Now, people have been going crazy over this. People want a Mini-ITX motherboard. People are like, damn, I want to make a Mini-ITX AMD Ryzen build. And so it looks like Biostar are delivering. Though, on that note, the VRM does, I mean, you can't even see the MOSFETs here. One 4-pin CPU connector. You know, I think these things draw 115 watts power per 4-pin. So you may be limited with this overclocking, guys. I mean, you got two DIMM slots there. Just saying, you might not be able to make the Ryzen Mini-ITX PC of your dreams. You know, when I'm thinking Ryzen Mini-ITX, I'm thinking kick-ass water cooler, kind of like that Z270 Mini-ITX from ASRock that I reviewed. That thing was just absolute bangers, man. That thing was huge for a Mini-ITX board. Of course, you only had 2 DIMM slots. Again, limited options on Mini-ITX due to the space restraints. But again, that single 4-pin, man, that's worrying me. So what happens, you know, because Ryzen, mine uses up 140 watts when I'm stress testing. So if the power draw is limited to like 115 watts, maybe, I mean, officially it might be a bit officially 115 watts. Unofficially, it might be, of course, it might be higher, but it's a little bit worrying. I mean, the VRM does look pretty mediocre already just by looking at it. So I know a lot of people, when they think X370, they're thinking overclocking, they're thinking enthusiast. This a little bit skeptical. Just sorry, guys. Got to cheer up, Jar Jar. You want to cheer me up, brother?
No, this is cool though.
You just gave me a kiss. I'm all cheered up, man.
Yeah. No, I think you're what you're saying is right, but I think a lot of people will still really like these. I think they'll go right, man. For people, at least they'll. It's a good start.
I definitely like the price point. 129 for the X370 and 109 for the B350. But it looks like we've got both models up here, and there doesn't look like there's any difference on the VRM on both models. So
no, I was just looking at that. Yeah.
So I mean, like, I could understand on the B350, but the X370, when people are paying that extra $20 or whatever it is, they want that. It looks like they're just paying for the license in this case. So even though there shouldn't be any SLI on there, I'd wonder how that works, on the X370, because is the SLI license baked into the X370 chipset license? Anyway, questions. I don't have the answers to. Sorry about that. But yeah, it looks like the B350 in this regard. Get it with an R5 1600, stock Ryzen cooler, and you should be maybe 3.8 gigahertz at a sweet spot overclock. Calling it for you guys. There it is. Booyah. Do you have anything to add on that?
No, you said it all.
No. But thanks, bro. Alright, so we got GTX 1080 Ti, GameRock. So this is from Palit. I spoke to Steve on how to pronounce this. He said it was Palit.
Like that's how I always pronounced it.
I like Palit.
But wouldn't there be Palae?
Doesn't matter, man. Like when you're using these fancy French words like cafe, you just say cafe. Hey, I'm going to the cafe to have a coffee.
I suppose.
Do you want to come to the cafe with us?
Is it actually a French company?
I don't know, man. To me, it sounds like Palit. When I've started to read these words, you started getting to the psyche Taiwanese. Of the word. Okay, well there you go. No, not the same thing. Sorry, not the same thing. I was going to say same thing, different name, made up overseas.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll go to the cafe and we'll bring our Palit graphics card to the cafe, and then have a coffee. How does that sound?
Sounds fantastic, bro.
All right, cool. So, why I brought up this model was it's got 4 fans. So even though it's got 2 fans, it's got underneath that another 2 fans. So it's kind of like you got some jet engine stuff going on here. Do you think do you think this thing, when you put it in your computer, do you honestly think this graphics card will start it'll start pushing that much air that it'll take off from the PCIe slot and blow out of your card and then fly around like a balloon?
I don't actually know if this is a good idea. I mean, I can see where they're going with it, but I mean, like, I know how jet engines work, jet turbines, and that doesn't really seem. But I mean, hey, we'd have to see once it gets tested. But that is an interesting approach. I mean, usually you would have the first fan as just the intake and the second one's the compressor, but that doesn't really make sense because if you compress the air, it'll get hot. So, yeah, I think this is just like they thought, oh, how can we make it really different?
Yeah.
And they said, well, put 4 fans on it. We'll say it improves temps, and then let's just see if it does. But yeah, if people start testing it and hey, the temps are really, really good, then great. But I don't really see it right now.
How can we differ this thing? I know. Stick some ugly GameRock text on there. Oh man, like that just.
Yeah, it's not an extremely appealing card, is it?
It actually looks good, except this text on the lower left corner here. Like someone went to defont.com. downloaded, typed in rock, and then been like, hey guys, I made up the text. It took me a whole day, but they did it in like 5 minutes. Here, GameRock. Yeah, that looks good. Let's stick that on the bottom left hand corner here. Like,
I don't agree. I don't like it, man. The like baby blue across the top and then this like navy blue across the middle. I don't know. I'm not a fan of the color
I
scheme.
think it looks different. I think it could really stand out in a particular build. But I just think this game
Yeah,
rock.
in a particular one, but for the average consumer, I don't know why they don't just make them color neutral and then just add the RGB LEDs so people can change them to make them
That's good. Yeah, I
match.
mean that's very valid. But yeah, this game rock text, man. I don't know what it is. But
Yeah, it is. It's yeah. No.
hopefully that's just printed on, so you can get like an eraser or something and just like rub it off. You know.
Yeah, no, it should be interesting. These speeds it's coming with are interesting. They're saying what 15 on the premium model, 1594. I'm guessing that's meaning the boost speed and its OC mode, which isn't particularly high compared
No.
to other ones.
Nah, the MSI and I think the Aorus as well do better. So
Yeah, they're all the way. They're in 1600 something. So
yeah, and the memory's pretty
17
low too.
something.
Oh, there's
Yeah,
no-
yeah. So
yeah.
weird. Oh, whatever.
Okay, well that's it. I just wanted to look at the 4 fans. That's all. I thought it was pretty cool how your PC, you know, your graphics card will now be able to take off outside your case while you're gaming.
Yeah.
So, guys, if you're playing games on this graphics card and your screen just suddenly goes black and then you hear a big crashing noise in the background, you know what happened. Okay.
Yeah, interesting. It's just it'll be an interesting thing. That'll be sure. I'll be interested in when people start reviewing it.
Okay, so we've got here the Dell 30-inch OLED is finally released. They released it, and you know the good news is it's $3,500. $3,500. Oh dang!
Oh,
And you know,
boy.
but it's still like they were going with 120 hertz refresh rate. Now, if they did put that 120 hertz refresh rate in, I'd be like, look, guys, charge 10 grand for it because it's the only thing out at the moment. You'll probably get a few people who want to buy it, but it's only 60 hertz. Like it's, you know, people want. For me, especially if I'm buying one of these monitors, I want like after using CF791, oh yeah, 100 hertz baby. But you want those higher refresh rates if I'm guessing if you're paying like a $3,500 price tag, because I know, okay, but then there's going to be people out there like, look, dude, productivity. Yeah, this is going to be for pretty much people who want productivity, but then again, don't those people already have like $2,000 sRGB calibrated monitors and whatnot? I mean, OLED is a technology that's beautiful. It looks so gorgeous. Like the blacks are so deep. You know, the contrast is amazing. I haven't seen anything as good as OLED at the moment, and that's an honest opinion. OLED looks phenomenal. But, you know, isn't there a market there that gamers would want to buy this? Or people, you know, like, yeah, I guess gamers would want to buy this. And so I think they should have tried to get the refresh rate up at any cost. Even if it was 90 hertz or 80 hertz, I think that would have been a much better selling point for this monitor, because when I look at this, I'm like, oh yeah, awesome, OLED, finally in a monitor, 4K. And then you've got 60 hertz. Oh. It's kind of like you're waiting for your favorite basketball player to take a shot, and it's like the game-winning point, and he chucks an air ball.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we
Yeah.
have Steve here in the comments saying,
Yeah.
do you have a 100 hertz Samsung monitor, Brian?
Oh, yes, Steve. I have a CF791, dude, and it's the best monitor I've used for a piece. Ultra wide, dude, 21 by 9, a QD LED display, man, absolutely phenomenal. I'll put the link in the description below for you, brother. Okay.
Okay, Steve.
Now,
Thanks for that.
Steve, it's got pretty fast response times too. Low input lag. I know Kev's just sitting there. Oh God, like Kev's like, get on with the show, Ryan. Come on.
How many times have we talked about that Samsung monitor?
Okay.
No, I agree with what you were saying with this Dell one though. It's like, why 4K high refresh rate is going to be the next big thing in monitors to me, I think. But you know, I mean, it's going to be kind of ridiculous at the same time. But that's a huge price tag for. Will it look awesome? Yeah, probably. But I mean, damn, from a value for money point of view, could you really ever warrant paying $3.5 grand for a 30-inch OLED?
Not 60 hertz though. That's the thing. Not 60
Yeah.
hertz. Like as I said, if it had the higher refresh rates in there, if they try to push it to 90 hertz even, I could see people buying this, like gamers buying this. I think it's 60 hertz, kind of like eh. I was thinking next week I was gonna, if you guys want, I can delid this live, 4690K. I was just looking at this CPU, and then I was looking at this delid kit here, and I was like, why not do a delid live? That'd be pretty cool. I don't even know that. Going off topic here completely, but okay. OLED monitor. I was loving it until I saw 60 hertz. So nah. Then we got up here. Next up, Starcraft Remastered coming this summer. You know, I was going through. I was like, oh my god, this is so awesome, so awesome. And then I just saw like they're basically just upping the resolution, and it looks like that with that they're upping the actual scale of the game too. So you get more screen space with that. So yes, this will be more CPU intensive than the original, based on that observation. But it's a 1998 game with 1998 graphics still. That's kind of what like made me disappointed. I thought they were going to go back and properly remaster it all. Like we were going to get sort of like SC2 graphics in here or something like that. That would be so cool because I love Brood War, man. It was it is probably my favorite, one of my favorite, Baldur's Gate 2 as well. Favorite PC games of all time. Absolutely love this game, especially the competitive play. It was so balanced. This is the game that got me into PC gaming, especially competitive play. And I was at one stage #1 in Australia at it. Oh yeah.
Nice.
So, winning those WCG tournaments when there was no money in there. There was no money in gaming. Pro gaming was dead back in like 2001, unless you were like Slayer's Boxer or who was the other guy? Fatality. Yeah, those two were raking it in. Everyone else was on like Macca's salaries. And I know some of these boys, some of my friends back in the day, they were like, Brian, man, I'm going to Korea. They packed their bags, went to Korea, came back years later, lost a lot of hair by the looks of it, and and they're broke. So back then it wasn't, really profitable at all. But nowadays, if you're young and you're talented and you're good at games, go all the way, man. You can make some serious bucks out of it if you get to the top level. But again, it's still very... But at that time, it's way more competitive now. Ooh, it'd be much more competitive now because of how big PC gaming is itself. So, yeah, remastered anyway.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It just looks like the same game, just with the graphics updated. And I mean, the thing is, if you play it now, it feels very cramped in its original form. So it'll be good with the ability to play it at higher resolutions. It won't feel so cramped. Yeah, I would have liked it as well if they'd redone all the cinematics as well, cutscenes and that, and made it a full remaster in every way. That would have been cool. A lot of people might not have liked that if it changed the control, but in some ways it was very limited because you could only select, like, what was it, 16 units at one time? I can't remember back. It's been a long time since I played it, but
I haven't played
you
it for a long
couldn't
time
just select the whole army like you can in StarCraft 2, and then just hotkey it to one key or something like that if you want to do the Protoss Death Ball or something. But that was an issue a lot of people had. I mean, it did mean that you had to APM way more because to move your armies around and stuff.
They are remastering the music though, and that's going to be awesome, and the dialogue as well. Hopefully they get I thought the dialogue was epic in Brood War. The voices, the voice acting was incredible. The music was really damn good too. So I liked what they did sound wise. So if they're remastering that, they've got a pretty high bar to jump over. So
yeah.
Sorry, dude. I've been cutting you off a little bit this week.
No, that's fine, man. No, I was just agreeing. No, I don't have anything else to add to that.
Alright, so we got Battlefront 2 trailer, release date, and everything else we need to know. So Battlefront 2, it's going to have some new heroes in there. It looks I watched the trailer. It looks really good. It looks like they're bringing in a campaign this time too. I'm not going to play the trailer because I don't want to get like DMCA takedown or something, but I'll put that in the description below for you guys. But Battlefront 2, what do you think so far?
I haven't read too much about it. I remember the original was quite good. But yeah, hopefully, I mean, there seems to be a lot of hype around it. So let's hope it lives up to it, I
Well, it looks like
suppose.
this time around they're focusing on the campaign. I mean, last time they just released it with no campaign. They're like, oh, sheesh, we better do something. And then they brought back some single player element to the game, which was really good. I mean, they needed that, but they needed that from the get go. And it looks like this time around they're like, okay, we better actually focus on a single player campaign or something to the likes of that. So they're going to bring, I think that's going to be a big focus of the game. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. Obviously, I really want more of that. Instead of having those massive area gun battles and stuff, I want like the lightsaber duels. I want like the option where you go in like 4 versus 4 or something, and you just like everyone's holding lightsabers, like the old. I think it was the Old Republic, one of those games back in like early 2000s. Man, it was the multiplayer was so much fun, eh? And you were just like force pulling and force pushing, and you had like Sith lightning and stuff. It was such an awesome game to play multiplayer. So. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are you dying for Battlefront 2? Are you pre-ordering? Are you being like, EA, take my money? Or are you being like, no, I'm going to wait for it? And if it has a single player, are some of you guys even going to do the no-no? Are you going to go and pirate it? Ooh. Anyway, guys, we're going to move over to Q&A now. So if you have questions and you want them answered, you just jump over to www.techcity.tv/forum, sign up, and you can jump in the threads here and ask some questions. So every week we go to the threads and answer the questions. Obviously, don't all come at once because, yeah, we don't want to be here on a live answering questions for like 2 hours. But you know, if you got a really hot question you need answered, then sure, shoot here. Nice. When you did your B350 overclock, how hot did your VRM MOSFETs get? Was that with the Asus board when I was doing that overclock? Yeah, see, that's the thing. I think I got the IR gun on it, and I had the fan on there actively cooling it, so it didn't get too hot. Yeah, if you guys are overclocking, then you'll always want some sort of cooling on your VRM. Now, the easiest way to get by that, and this is why people buy more expensive cases, is because they've got that airflow going through, and that will help with your VRM. That will legitimately help with your VRM cooling, because you just got fresh air blowing it away if it's good cooling solution. So that's why I do like, especially the Air 740 I've got here, and the Air 540. People who own those cases, I don't think you'll say one person who will complain about the airflow on those cases. Phenomenal. You just got the air coming in the front, blowing it straight out the back. Phenomenal. So if you're getting into overclocking, I would invest in a decent case, just like a decent power supply. I would recommend if you're into overclocking, starting to invest in a decent case too, with decent cooling, or of course just get a cheap case, whack a heap of fans in the front so you've got good airflow. That's the easiest way to get around it. Of course, you can also drop, like what I did, just ghetto hack some fan on there and have it blowing air straight onto the VRMs. Sorry, the VRM, not the VRMs. Again, this week, guys, don't hate me. So yeah, that's sort of like the recommendations we're going with there. Is you should have a VRM with some sort of cooling at the very least.
I think maybe his question was the more like how hot is too hot type thing, which is like what 125 is it? That's sort of that's like in ways that's a thermal trip. Like that's when your motherboard will switch off. You don't want to go near that. You want your VRMs running under 100 degrees. Too hot. That's what I mean. You want your VRMs ideally running under 100 degrees. So, and that's pretty easy to achieve. It's not that hard. You can get away with over 100 though, but ideally, but you never want them over, say, 120, for example. Would that be fair to say?
Well, yeah. I mean, it depends on the make and model, but most VRMs, 125's like that spot where things really don't sit well or bode well. So, depends. Some have a T-junction thermal trip of 150. 135, 125. It just depends on the make and model of the MOSFETs. So, but you always want to make sure that they're pretty cool, especially for longevity or longevity. You really want to make sure that they're cool. All your gear should be running sweet, and cooling is a big part of that. So, yeah, and they will. Like, nice question. I heard they get warm a lot. Yeah, they will get warm because you've got less phases. So you got more uptime. It depends on the switching frequency as well, but you've got more uptime on those MOSFETs. So you want to get them cooled. And the easiest way, if you're a lazy man, get one with a heatsink on it, get a case, and just have good airflow. and you should be fine for the majority of like overclocks, even like 4 gigahertz on Ryzen. You should be okay. So anyway,
Yeah, he was saying gets up to 112C with the stock heatsink.
and that's why I'd have to ask a counter question to Dragon Kurt. What sort of cooling have you got at the moment? You have to let us know more. What cooling solutions have you got, and exactly what motherboard do you have? So let us know the motherboard, let us know the overclocks, and let us know the case and the fan setup that you've got going on. Then we can talk more about it, and what you can do to get those temperatures down. Personally, I wouldn't want my VRMs running at 112 degrees. Where's that measured from as well? Is that measured from software, or is that measured, I wouldn't be with an IR gun, because that would be thermal. That already thermal trip. When it comes to bargain hunting builds, if the systems are not overclockable, would that be a deal breaker to you, even if it was a good price? Is this last week's, or is this
episode? This is this week's.
Did we get this question last week? Or have I got my crystal ball out? April 13, yeah. Wait.
Yeah, this is 22's this week.
Wait up. Wait. Didn't I post up episode? Oh my goodness. I may have screwed up here. Because I'm pretty sure I already answered that question last week. Yeah. Oops.
That was from April 13th.
Alright, well, we've got new questions on here anyway. We'll scroll down to April. Okay, so Ngari's like, okay. Okay, so we'll go down to this question. I'm sorry, I realized my question was incomplete. Since the R5 1600 has this major difference from the R1700 in its lower all-core boosts, thereby potentially limiting manual overclocking on some chips to 3600 MHz, do you still recommend it as the best value for money? If you're manually overclocking, you should only be limited on Ryzen to what either your motherboard or your CPU can reach. The CPUs are unlocked. They'll go above 3600 MHz if you want them to. The R5 1600, I think it's the best value out of them all, because you can get them to 4 gigahertz. You can get them to 3.9, even like 3.85, even on a stock Ryzen cooler in like 20, what did I test it at? 25 degree ambience. So manually overclocking, you should be able to get these chips exactly where the R7 1700s are, if not better. So, depends. Okay, so we got here April 16th. What if we answered that? Okay, I don't know. I'm going crazy this week. Sorry, guys. This question's been...
No, there was a big question down by Demagogic Gaming.
Demagogic Gaming. Okay, hey everyone. Answer as many questions as you like. Leftovers will be carried over and asked another time. First question series. I looked through your video history, and before asking these questions, I noticed that you do not cover water cooling as much, or it's not obviously labeled as such. What form of water cooling would you recommend to someone who has never done it before? That'd be easy. I mean, all-in-ones if you've never done it before. And the reason, I don't focus on water cooling as much because I don't have a lot of time. Like, if you're making custom loops, man, they take time. Like, even me doing that $50, I remember doing that $50 water loop. It took me a lot of time to, like, make sure. You have to make sure. If you're doing a custom loop, you have to make sure there's no leaks, everything's running perfect, because that's massive potential to damage a lot of gear. And I don't say that like usually, man, look at me, like I mess around, like I'm washing computer parts sometimes, like I mess around a lot, and water cooling is not one of those things you'll want to mess around with at all.
No, you need to know what you're doing. If he's meaning not an all-in-one and like he wants to do custom loop type stuff, I would say just buy a kit, because you can usually buy a kit which comes with everything that you need, rather than maybe buying stuff individually. If you buy the kit, then hey, I've got everything here I need. They'll come with instructions on how to do everything, and you can go from there. But it is something that you're right. You don't want to do it. I mean, we have to learn some way, but it's definitely do your research and studying first.
So which way of water cooling your system is the most cost effective, bang for your buck? Well, that would be all-in-ones at the moment.
All-in-ones,
easy. Again, that's a lot of the reason why. Another reason is I don't do custom water loops is because the price performance is pretty it's pretty bad. Like,
It looks good, but
yeah,
you pay for it.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the price performance really isn't there with water cooling a lot of the time, because you're not going to get much more over an all-in-one or a decent air cooler. And you know, of course, you get lower temps, but it doesn't exactly mean, especially in the realm of water, that doesn't mean much higher overclocks at all. So, would you recommend pre-built coolers, dedicated CPU water-cooled hybrid that attaches over the CPU with a hybrid GPU cooler? Maybe someone sells pre-built coolers for other parts that attach to the same radiator for RAM and motherboard. Okay, so you want to do essentially a custom loop. I don't know anyone that does a kit that'll go like CPU and GPU all from the same radiator. That would be way too
like
complicated.
daisy chain them together.
Yeah, I mean, that would be way too complicated because of distances and different case setups. So when you go with custom water cooling, you have to decide what case you're using, what motherboard, the spacing, where you're putting your graphics cards, where your radiator's going, and then you've got to obviously make the custom tubing for that build. So again, yeah, I don't imagine anyone would make a pre-built either, because it'd be a fail. And if you tell a first timer to use those plastic tubes as opposed to glass or whatever material they are made of to custom.
Oh, he's meaning soft or hard. You don't want to go soft tubing. If you go hard,
if it's your first time, I would recommend go with the soft tubing.
Soft.
Yeah, easy. I mean, just to get the hang of things. Of course, when you're used to water cooling and you've got your head around it all, then you can go with PETG tubing. Get the fire out there and spin it and custom bend all the tubes. But of course, that's something I've still got to do as well. I haven't actually done a PETG tubing build yet, so it's something I really want to do. It's just I got to find the time to do it. It's something I really want to do. I want to make my own full custom rig for the channel. And then personally, I'm trying to leave air cooling behind because the air temperatures are not reliable, or what I have in store for my PC. Air cooling should be very reliable. Get a good case, get a good air cooler, and they should be very reliable. I don't know.
Yeah, unless you live somewhere where the temperature's all over the place. If you have a good case, good fans, good big heat sinks on like a Noctua cooler or something,
yeah,
it should be pretty good.
Second question: don't you think we need more protection as consumers? I'm guessing you're in America. If that's the case, that would be your consumer laws. In Australia, we actually have pretty good, really good consumer
New Zealand's
protection.
the same.
Yeah,
pretty good protection.
Really good.
Yeah.
Like, you buy something, you can return it, no questions asked a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like the product, it's crazy. If the consumer protection in Australia it's really good. Of course, some people abuse it. I don't know what it's like in the States, but yeah, I mean, that's one. I can't really answer that because I'm guessing you're from America, because I think people in Australia wouldn't complain about the consumer protection in place. It's actually really good at the moment. I think there's like a minimum of even sometimes a minimum of 2-year warranty over the 1 year. So a lot of these companies that sell tech products, they'll give a 1-year warranty to people at the US, but they'll give a 2-year warranty to people in Australia. So we're actually pretty good. Like, we get it pretty good in terms of that in those. What additional details about a product would you find useful to have a box in store or online before purchasing? I mean, it depends about, if you're talking about consumer or products in enthusiast tech, then you should be like, there's a heap of information out there. If you want to buy a product, there's a heap of reviews on it. Go check out the reviews. So I think in terms of what's on the box, I'm not really going to argue with that. Then the next question, have you met an honest lawyer? Because I haven't. That's out of the blue, but that's a really weird question. And, you know, I don't know what it is. Why does this come on April 23rd? Because the other week I was out on the town. I was at the casino with my friend. And before that, if you had asked this question a week ago, I would have said to you, no. But then we were out on the town the other week. This was a crazy story. We're out having a few drinks, and, you know, we're talking to some girls, as you do.
Sure.
Yeah, and then there was this guy. This guy just came in. He's like, "Hey, man, these guys are probably onto something good here." And I just started chatting to him, and he was a lawyer, and he was honest, like really honest. I talked to him about my personal situation because I had a few things I actually wanted to go see a lawyer about, and he gave me such honest answers. The first thing he said was, "Don't see a lawyer. If you can, avoid a solicitor or a lawyer at all costs, because you're just going to lose your money." And I haven't heard that from any other lawyer that I've seen or even met or even heard of in the past. So yeah, I have met an honest lawyer. If you want to know
I
his
met a
detail,
few.
like,
Yeah.
but this guy was really honest. I was like, wow, okay. Gave me some really good advice. And before that, I would have said no. But after, the last weekend out, it's just weird how that question comes up now. Because I would have said no, but after last week, I have met an honest lawyer. So it's crazy.
It depends, because it's such a big thing as well. I mean, most of you guys are probably just thinking, oh, criminal defense lawyers or things like that. But there's heaps of people that do different things, especially, ones that are more focused on business and stuff like that. Yeah, I've met plenty. I think it's a kind of funny stereotype that the whole lot get it, even though there certainly are bad ones, but they're dishonest ones. But it depends which sort of part of the law they cover. That's basically where you need to look more, I think.
Yeah, the YouTube coverage of Ryzen has generally been abysmal with so much misinformation. That's not true. I think a lot of the channels on YouTube...
That's pretty harsh.
That's pretty harsh, man. Wow, total lack of quality journalism. I think a lot of, especially the people I know, we've tested Ryzen and we've tested it very well and done
I
very
think everyone's been
good
pretty
recommendations.
fair. I think at the start you could have maybe said that, but
there was problems,
it is new
man.
for us too. Yeah, there were problems. We didn't know. AMD had to come out and clear things up. There was a lot. Of course, there's going to be a bit of misinformation because we all didn't know. It was new.
Dude,
Everyone was throwing out ideas.
Misinformation's a bad term to use. Misinformation is misinforming.
It was just, people we just didn't know. And we were using our intuition or experience to talk about things, even the real top dogs like Wendell and stuff. We were all just trying to figure it out.
I haven't misinformed anyone once about Ryzen. My day one review was accurate for the time. My day one review, for example, that was accurate at the time of what you could expect if you were to buy Ryzen.
Yeah,
How's
exactly.
That's not misinforming at all.
I think it's we're getting a bit mixed up in the words. My point that I was trying to make was that at the start there was a lot of things we didn't know, and so all of us were trying to figure out what it was about, why we were getting some of the results we did. I think that's quite harsh. Maybe there's obviously going to be people out there that are going to be diving a lot deeper. They have a lot more experience. Again, someone like Wendell, huge knowledge.
Wendell, like Jay summed it up though well. Wendell's got a lot of knowledge in servers and virtual machines and stuff like that. Like something that I don't practice at all. So how can people say I'm not knowledgeable in that? I'll be honest with you guys, straight up. And Ryzen may be a really good. Like Wendell seems to really love it in that regard. So again, that's his expertise. Yeah, that's his expertise. Yeah. So I'm not going to come out and say
that makes sense. Yeah.
I've pushed a lot of people over to Wendell's channel. I've said if you want to know about that stuff, go to Wendell. He's very knowledgeable in those areas. So,
and he's such a nice guy. That's the thing. I think there's different tiers of the YouTube channels and the tech YouTube channels in terms of what content they're trying to provide to the people. And that's not being mean, because I would count my channel as more entertainment focused than many others. You see the differences between them. But that's just how people want to do it. And there's obviously you have to balance it as well. If you make your videos very, very technical, the average consumer or average PC enthusiast, maybe you would say, will just be completely lost. The hardcore guys will understand it, but other people might. So it's always kind of a little bit of a balance, I try to think, of making it sort of casual. Might be the wrong word, but casual enough that a lot of more average consumers can understand what you're trying to say or talk about, but make it technical enough for the enthusiast to also sort of enjoy it. And that's the thing. I don't think many guys know that a lot of us do kind of have to weigh it a little bit. Other tech YouTubers, people like Steve and stuff, will probably know. I mean, I've talked to Steve about this as well, but I think that's very, very harsh wording to use for us when people are just trying to do the best with the knowledge and the information they have available to them, and to say that they're, if you just miss one thing, to jump at someone, I think that's a bit harsh.
Well, my my reply to that would be, what are you referring to, Angara? You can't just say, oh, generally it's been what has been, give us examples of where there's a lack of quality journalism. Give us an example of where there's misinformation. I need to know, because I thought a lot of my content, straight down the line, no holds barred, this is how the testing ended up. And then I report on that. That's what it's always going to be like on my channel, so I don't think I've misinformed anyone. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so. I think it's part of that. When I've talked to Jim from Adored TV, me and Jim get along really good. Now, so that's been good. But yeah, Jim points out a lot of things on his channel, and that is good that he's doing that. But a lot of us, we're just reporting the numbers and stuff. Like me, I'll just do the tests, get the numbers, then interpret those numbers for you guys in my own way. But I'll often tell you guys, hey, this is just my personal opinion. Let me know in the comments what your opinion is. And so we can just go with those numbers and then have a discussion about them. And I think that's what Brian does as well a lot of the times too. And that's the way. You can't really call it misinformation or anything, because all they're doing is getting numbers and then telling you guys about them, or interpreting them. So that's all there is to it.
All right, guys. Well, that's winding up the show for this week. I've also got my Patreon set up. Thank you guys so much for the support that's been coming in the last few weeks, especially. Really appreciate it, of course, with the YouTube system being in complete havoc at the moment. Guys like me who are doing this for a full-time gig, I do depend on the money for it. So with me and Steve from Hardware Unboxed, we're doing a monthly live patron stream. So if you guys want to access that, you can have access to the archives for $1 a month. We also, of course, we do stream it for free if you're subscribed to the Twitch stream, Tech City TV. But also, yeah, guys, thanks so much for the support thus far. It's going really well. Things are going well. We're sort of working through this storm that is the YouTube algorithm change. And yeah. Jar Jar's going to catch you guys next week. So be sure to head over to techcity.tv/forums if you have any questions, and we'll be sure to make a new thread with hopefully more updated questions. Sorry about that. So we'll catch you guys next week though. Love everything about tech. Love all you guys who tune into the show. And thanks for Kev for coming on too. I'll put the link for this in the description for his channel. In the description. I don't even know, man. But this week I'm crazy, guys. I've lost my mind. It's gone. It's in another place. And if you guys are in Sydney on Wednesday, be sure to just send us a tweet. Join Twitter, follow us, send us a tweet, because Steve and I will be down in the AMD event. He'll be up because he's coming down from Melbourne. I'm going down from Gold Coast. So anyway, we'll catch you guys. So much things going on, but yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Love your work. Thanks, Kev, for coming on, and we'll catch you guys next week. Any closing statements, Kev?
No, man. Just thanks. Thanks, guys, for watching. It's a really fun show.
All right. Peace out.